high school graduation parties, senior banquet, commencement ceremony, all kinds of great things happening at the end of the school year for seniors and students at McDowell High School, as well as every high school around the area. And celebrations associated with all those things usually are wonderful and fantastic events at the end of the school year, but there can be a downside. And that's why we're here today for just a few minutes to talk with you about some of the dangers associated with the end of the year festivities and things that can sometimes get out of hand. In fact, very easily can get out of hand with high school kids. I have with me here today Mike Caro, who's an assistant principal at McDowell High School, and also the director of athletics and student programs, and April Bush, who is a drug and alcohol counselor with Pyramid Healthcare Services and also the supervisor of the student assistance programs at McDowell. I'm Tim Rankin, the high school principal at McDowell Senior High School, and we're here to talk with you today about some of the dangers associated with alcohol use by high school students. Mike, what do you notice at the end of a school year as an assistant principal?
Well, Tim, this time of year the excitement is in the air and kids are planning their graduation parties. We have the prom just around the corner, big events, things for students to get excited about. Students want to party, and we just hope that students make responsible decisions and that you know, we can stay in the clear and stay free of some of those dangers associated with some of those risks out there. And the one risk that Mr. Rankin did mention was that of alcohol.
April, as a drug and alcohol counselor for Pyramid Healthcare Services, what do you notice toward the end of the school year from your point of view?
Sure. During the end of the school year, we get a lot of referrals from the district justice or the police departments for students that have had underages or DUIs coming home from different graduation parties, or sometimes they have gotten caught at a prom under the influence, which is, of course, a school policy violation.
Mm-hmm. And we're concerned that these kind of things increase this time of year, particularly connected to events such as prom and commencement. As tempting as it may be for high school students to engage in illegal and irresponsible behaviors, we're here to tell you no. It's not a good idea. There are serious consequences socially, legally, and scholastic-wise to any choices that you would make that get you into that kind of trouble. We've tried to take some proactive steps at school in regard to some of this. Mike, maybe you can talk a little bit with us about some of the directions we've decided to go in terms of communicating about this with students.
You know, Tim, we talk all the time. We have a lot of great kids in our school, kids that do wonderful things for the community, and just great, wonderful students. However, those great, wonderful students at times make bad decisions. And this is the time of the year that students need to think about what those decisions may be and need to anticipate what kind of situations they might find themselves in, especially around a prom time, during the party season, graduation parties. And so we hope that students will prepare so they can be better equipped to make the decisions when the decisions are very important. One of the measures that we had taken here just recently, in fact, was that we visited with all the extracurricular programs, all the athletic teams after school. I met with them along with April Bush, and we spoke to them about the dangers associated with alcohol and also about being able to make good decisions and probably most importantly being able to anticipate that the time will come when they will have to make a decision. And with these big events coming up that are right around the corner, we hope that they take that advice and that you know, we can stay free of any significant dangers associated with this time of year.
Did the kids participate pretty honestly in those meetings?
You know, the students were well behaved, and during parts of the discussion you could hear a pin drop. So we do believe that they took the information, they took it well.
Good. April, your part in these meetings that we had with students, what did you have to say to the students about these kinds of decisions and these kinds of consequences?
Sure. I kind of took a different approach. I didn't really talk to them about the effects of alcohol because they've kind of had that in health class and through life skills in middle school. So I kind of focused more on what it can do to them as an athlete, how it affects their body. Mm-hmm. We also talked about some of the consequences legally and also the school policy violations. A lot of the kids had very good questions. Like Mike said, they were really interested in the conversation. So.
Great. What are some of those legal consequences that students might face if they get caught underage drinking?
Sure. If they're caught underage drinking, there is a fine between $50 to $500. They can be put onto probation, and they lose their license, of course. For the first time is 90 days, the second time is a year, and after the second time it's up to 2 years that they can lose their license. For driving under the influence, anything above a .02 is considered legally intoxicated, so they can face a very large fine, probation again, and once again they lose their license. So there's some major consequences. And we've also talked to them about the consequences for some of their parents if their parents are providing the alcohol, or if their parents are providing a place for them to have a party.
Mike, I think you spoke with Captain Tombaugh down at the police department recently about some of their concerns this time of year with these kinds of issues. What did he have to say to you?
Captain Tombaugh said the two big items are accidents around prom time. They always fear that. And the other thing is parties at prom time. And he said, interestingly enough, and it's kind of hard to believe, that some parents will actually sponsor some of those parties. And he made it very clear that it is illegal for any adult to provide any alcohol to anyone under the age of 21. And he is aware that that does take place in the community and that they will be looking for that.
And in fact, April, not only can there be consequences if parents provide alcohol, but even being knowledgeable that their home is being used for a party where alcohol is being served, but not intervening and stopping it. Isn't that correct?
Correct. And it's also, if your student, your son or daughter, is having a party at your house and you're not aware of it, it still becomes your responsibility because it's in your house. So if something was to happen, you could suffer some type of
So whether a
consequence.
parent is aware or not aware that alcohol use is occurring in their home, they're still responsible legally for that.
Yes.
Okay.
It kind of falls under two different laws, but yes, they could still be responsible.
That's good to know. That's good to know. Interventions. If we have a situation at school or school-related, let's say prom night, and we have an incident of somebody showing up at the prom under the influence of alcohol, Mike, how is that handled?
Well, students that fall into the category where they're under the influence, either under the influence or in possession of alcohol, there are some pretty significant consequences. And oftentimes students will ask me, well, what are the consequences? And they'll say that, well, if we were drinking outside of school, then school can't apply any consequences. And then at that point, I make it very clear that if they're drinking outside of school and then they do show up at the prom with alcohol on their breath, or that they're under the influence to any degree, the school rules apply. And in those situations, as we have dealt with in the past years, students are suspended from school, usually 10 days in the first offense. And we go through the due process. A suspension is in place, and we also provide services for support at school. But it's always an ugly situation. The parents are required to come in, and we have a hearing in the office, as you well know. And it's just not a good thing for the students, their families, or for the school. But we do take it very seriously.
And we do have police presence at the prom to help supervise. They do have their breathalyzer test kits with them. And if any school official, a teacher who's chaperoning, even a PTA mom who's chaperoning, believes they smell alcohol on a student, we have that student discuss it face to face with a police officer. And sometimes we test kids on the suspicion. In fact, if there is alcohol smelled, we test them on a suspicion. If they're clean and they haven't been drinking, that's great. We will still call their parents and let them know that they were tested and checked and everything was fine. But if they have been drinking alcohol, then the consequences begin to apply. We make a phone call home and have someone pick them up. Of course, we wouldn't want to allow them to drive home in any condition of altered abilities. So we do that, and then we would schedule the suspension and the informal hearings and so on at school. So, April, what other interventions are there? Mike mentioned about supports available. What happens in the event of an offense like this in terms of the school kicking in to provide some help and support?
We have the Student Assistance Program, which is a program where the students can voluntarily participate. They need parent permission. Once they get parent permission, we can do a screening to kind of see what drugs and alcohol they are using, and then from there we decide if they need some type of intervention in the school, some education, or if they need a little bit of a more intense type of treatment, which would be outpatient in a clinic for drug and alcohol. Or we could also make a referral to the mental health specialist who is at the McDowell High School.
So what services, again, do we have available right at McDowell High School then for students in some kind of a crisis or difficult situation?
We have the mental health specialist who is provided through Sarah Reed, and you have the drug and alcohol counselor who is provided through Pyramid Healthcare, and of course the probation officer. And those are the three outside agencies.
And then we have our in-house counselors as well that will work with our students in various degrees of need. That student assistance program works very, very well through a screening process and through a referral process. And now, who can refer students to that? You mentioned that kids can be voluntarily involved, but can there be a referral by a parent or by a teacher? How does that work?
A teacher can come down to Student Services or contact anyone that's on the Student Services team, and they just have to fill out a paper, let them know who the student is, what concerns they have, and it'll be brought to the team, and the team will decide from there if it goes to the mental health specialist or if it goes to a guidance counselor or if it goes to the drug and alcohol liaison. And there's always parent contact, so the parent is aware of what's going on. And parents can always call in and talk to a guidance counselor and let them know kind of the situation, and they can then make a referral. Other students can make referrals. We've talked to the sports teams and kind of let them know that if you know of a student who is in need of help, please come and talk to one of us, because we can go ahead and help them in school, so it doesn't necessarily have to be outside.
What about confidentiality? If a parent or a student makes a referral, how does confidentiality work with that?
Confidentiality is different between the mental health aspect and also the drug and alcohol. For drug and alcohol, if a student comes to us and tells us that they're using alcohol or drugs, that stays between the drug and alcohol counselor and the student. We have to allow the parent to know that we're seeing them, but we can't tell an administrator or the police what the student is using or where or when.
I see.
So it is, there's a lot of law surrounding that.
And that's when they come to you voluntarily seeking help.
Yes, and even involuntarily,
okay,
there are certain things that we can't release to their parents or to an administrator or to the police.
Okay.
So.
You know, and if I could add something to that, the one thing that I would offer parents in the community, it's sometimes you get to the age of 11th and 12th grade and parents hesitate to call in looking for some support or for some advice because they fear that their child, their son or daughter may get upset with them for doing so. We encourage you to make the phone call to Student Services. They'll give you all kind of strategies in igniting a conversation with your son or daughter, but the support is available, and the school district is very willing to provide that support. And again, we're talking about the end of the year when parties are planned and the excitement is high, so anything that you can do to assist is greatly appreciated.
If you could give one word of advice to students and then to parents, Mike, what would that be from your perspective as an administrator, as an athletic director, and someone who is deeply involved in the day-to-day lives of students and their activities at school?
I would say, and it's the same thing we shared with the students during our meetings, that the students need to be aware that they're going to be in situations that require important decisions. They have to make smart decisions, and most of the time, at that moment, you're not prepared to make that big decision. And so a little bit of planning, a little bit of thought at this point going into this season and knowing how you're going to respond to some of those situations can be a matter of life or death. And so we encourage kids to stop, to think a little bit about what they may be looking ahead to down the road here in the next few weeks, and to be able to make a smart decision if in fact they're in a situation that is a dangerous situation. And to parents, I would open the discussion with your son or daughter and talk about what they'll be doing on prom night, graduation parties, where they're going, offer rides, but get involved and always know where your son or daughter is at, which house they're at. And also, if you hear that there are parties in the community, any party that is somewhere in the community is dangerous if it's providing alcohol to students under the age of 21. So I would encourage you to call local law enforcement to make sure that we can keep a safe community during this busy and exciting time.
April, is there words of advice you'd give to parents if they do hear about the potential for a party going on or some alcohol involvement by kids?
Sure. What I would say to parents is kind of exactly what Mr. Caro was saying. Please feel free to call the police station and allow them to know where the party is going to be taking place, what is going on, who's involved. And you can always do it anonymously. You don't have to give your name or your student's name. But that's the most important thing, is definitely getting the people involved. Even though there might be some negative consequences, you're possibly saving your student or their friends from a major consequence that we might not be able to bring them back from.
I know sometimes we at school have even gotten wind of things that might be going on in the community, and we've called parents and alerted them to that. Mm-hmm. And we would not hesitate to do that if we hear of something that might be happening that might be dangerous for kids. I agree with Mike and April both that one of the main things parents can do is talk right with your own son or daughter about where they're going to be, how long they're going to be there, who they're going to be with, what their transportation arrangements are going to be. Even if there is reason for concern, set up a schedule for phone call check-ins. You know, that may seem babyish to some kids, but I know with my own daughter and a foster son we had earlier, before we had kids of our own, we required them to check in with us when they were somewhere overnight or somewhere, you know, where we didn't know necessarily all the people that were going to be there or the parents whose house they were at. So it's a big time of year. It's a great time of year. A lot of celebration, a lot of happiness and festivity. All of it can be done very appropriately and very safely if you keep some of these things in mind. The last thing we want to have happen in terms of commencement and graduation night on June 10th is to have to keep someone out of that ceremony because they got involved in a serious school-related incident that impacts them with a suspension, a major suspension of some kind. We don't want to keep somebody from participating in a commencement ceremony, but our policies are such that that can be one of the outcomes. So kids, make good choices. Parents, help your son and daughter out, and please don't hesitate to contact April or Mike or myself at McDowell High School for some of those supports and helps.